Hello lovelies and welcome back to my channel. I'm doing another video. I feel like I finally have my love of video making back. I'm catching up on all the videos in the tarot and witchcraft sphere that I've missed out on, and it's just lovely to be back after the break. So I thought I'd do another VR today. It's a VR to the wonderful Meg over at Rose Honey Ritual and to Theia over at Garden Goddess Tarot. So their tag out at the minute is only 10 mass market decks, and I thought I'd join in. Now normally when I do these only 10 videos, I pick the 10 must-have decks, like if the house burnt down tomorrow, which would be the 10 decks that I would grab. So the 10 always have. So in amongst those decks, I normally always include my first Rider Waite, which is the deck that my dad's voice come through, but I'm going to class that as a given. I always pick my very first soul deck, the Tarot of the Sweet Twilight. It's a given. I always pick the Iris Oracle, which is just fundamental in my practice. That's a given. I always pick the Thoth. That's a given in my practice too. I always pick the Moon Oracle. All of those are givens, and I'm not going to do it slightly differently this time. I'm going to pick mass market decks only, and I'm going to pick the 10 that I'm really excited about at the moment. If I had to pack a bag for a weekend away with 10 decks currently at the moment, which 10 mass market decks would they be? So this is changeable. This video is going to be different next month, different again the month after. So what are my 10, only 10 mass market decks currently at the end of November 2022? Okay, so the decks I'm being called to at the moment. The first is a deck I said I'd never want, the Deviant Moon Tarot. I think this came into my collection about this time last year, and I haven't used it much, to be honest. I've used it enough to know that I am incredibly surprised by it, and that all the times that people said if you got the deck you would love it, I've used it enough to know that they're right. It is definitely a deck that I said I never wanted. I think the imagery and the colours and the vibe of the deck is just perfect for this time of year. I think it feels like a sort of hibernating under cosy throws, a deck to use on cold winter nights. So I feel like it's a deck for November, it's a deck for December. It is a deck that I think will just quarter me through Yuletide and the Christmas season. So the Deviant Moon Tarot, this is the borderless edition. It's got these backs. This is the first of my only 10 mass market decks. Deck number 2, which feels like the right sort of vibe for where I'm at the moment for this time of year, is another deck that I got in about this time last year. It's the Dark Angels Tarot. Again, it's a deck that I haven't used much, but that's calling to me at the moment. It's got these backs, and it's got this sort of dark, gothic, angel imagery. Again, I just think it feels perfect for this time of year. You can see that it's quite dark, it's quite sort of Samhain-y, it's Halloweeny, it's very gothic. It's dark and it's mysterious, and it's got this foreboding energy, which for me just sits perfectly with this time of year. It's a deck that I just want to get to know better. It's a deck that I've used in the past, paired with the Radley Valentine Angels cards. Don't think I'm going to do this time. I think I'm going to keep this deck separate. So yeah, that's deck 2, the Dark Angels Tarot, which is by Luca Cuso. It's a low Scarabeo deck. The next deck is a deck that I bought, I think it was the last deck that came into my collection at the very end of last year, before my no buy year kicked in. And believe it or not, I haven't used it yet. So it just goes to show it really could have waited. It really could have waited actually an entire year. It just goes to show about spending. We don't need to race to get the thing. I just haven't got round to it. I've been using other decks, so it's one I'm really looking forward to trying. It's Beth Seelanon's Raveness Dracon Tarot, Dragons and Ravens. It looks like a story time deck as well. I don't know because I haven't really used it at all. The cards have these fantastic black and white backs. You can see the dragon, you can see the raven there. It's matte cardstock, and you can see the type of art style. Beth Seelanon's got a very distinct art style. Of course, she's done the Guardian Tarot. It really does look like a storytime deck to me. I'm just really interested to see who these characters are and how the dragon and the raven weave together throughout this deck to form a story. It looks like it has a story running through it. I might be wrong. I'm just really keen now to give this deck a go to find out. I think the imagery is lovely. Like I say, I love Beth's style of art. I can see the style of her other decks running through it, like with the trees and the spirits in the trees. Of course, I've got my pull to the Morrigan, so anything with a raven or a crow in automatically appeals. Dragons, I've never really worked specifically with dragon energy, although the Field Guide to Garden Dragons Oracle is one that, as you know, if you've seen my channel, that I use daily with Tilly, and we love that. But it would just be really interesting to just see how the dragon and the raven work together throughout the deck. It's Rider-Waite imagery. It's done in a really imaginative way. I'm really excited about this one. That's the Raveness Dracon Tarot. Deck number 4 is one of my earliest oracles that I bought. It's one of my all-time favourites. It probably would make it into an only 10, to be honest. It's perfect all year round, but I think particularly in the cold nights of winter, it's the Literary Witches Oracle. This one, a bit like the Stretch Tarot, which didn't make it in because I don't think the Stretch Tarot is mass market, is it? But this one is like the Stretch Tarot for me. It holds the most glorious, magical, sort of witchy vibe to it. Having used this deck regularly, the readings that I get when I use this deck, either by itself or combined with other decks, it always adds just so much to the mix. I think it's on this fantastic sort of linen-y cardstock, which I adore, and it's one of my all-time favorite oracles. But I just feel really called at the minute to use this. It's got again the cold dark nights of winter and late autumn. It's just a perfect vibe for that. You can see it's got a very distinct art style. You've got these sort of more plain spell object cards, and then you've got the author cards. I think there's lots to pull on to get meanings from this deck. You've got not only the author's work if you know it, but then you've got stories about the author, and the spell cards just add just something very open to the mix that you can really take your reading message on a race with. Really, it leads you off on tangents, this deck, which often I find adds so much to a reading. I love it. Deck number 5, the Margaret Peterson Tarot. Now, I have been looking for the burgundy one, but it's really shot up in price. This is the old one, and I've said before, I got this secondhand really cheap, but the box came with a knife cut through it and a damaged and split card as well. But I managed to get that card replaced. So this is the old version of the Margaret Peterson with the white edges. I would absolutely love the burgundy edged one as well. Perhaps next year I'll keep an eye on it and see if the price is going to come down at all, or see if I can get a second-hand one, because I think the burgundy has a completely different vibe to the white one, and I think the two could work together as well. But the guidebook, the little guidebook and the poetry in the guidebook with this deck, it's the smallest of guidebooks, but it's the most intense of guidebooks. It's just wonderful, and this is just pure healing in a deck. It's the most wonderful deck. I love to work with this deck. It's been used more in the last 6 months than in the previous 3 years. I think it's a deck that once you start working with it, it just makes it into, it finds its way into your heart, and it's just beautiful to work with. It's a deck that will give me a reading that will reduce me to tears easily. It's been worked with quite a bit this year, but it's calling to come back out again. So at the moment, if I was packing a bag and racing out of the door with only 10 decks, this would definitely be one of them. Its artwork is, well, you can just see so much in it. You can lose yourself in the abstract paintings of this deck. The more you look, the more you see. It's one of those decks. I think again, it's a bit like the Literary Witches Oracle. It leaves itself open enough for you to run with the story of the reading around what you're looking at. Does that make sense? I think it does. But yeah, the Margaret Peterson, that's definitely in this top 10. Deck number 6 is another deck that I love. I've had it a while. Again, I've got so many decks. This is one that hasn't had a lot of work, but I think this just feels, again, perfect for sort of cold winter nights when it's gone dark outside by 4 o'clock. So this is the Enchanted Tarot by Amy Zerner and Monty Farber. This is the huge one with the I think it was the 30th anniversary edition, or it might have been the 35th anniversary edition. It was the one that came in the lovely purpley box. You can see, if I compare it to the Chicoli deck, you can see how big these cards are. But again, I just think they are very sort of Yuletide. I'm about to get the Christmas decorations out of the loft, and there's so much going on in this artwork. It looks a little bit like Christmas decorations, I think, in a good way. I'm not saying that in a bad way. Of course, this is sort of sewn textile art that's been photographed. Again, there is so much to work with in this deck as far as the imagery goes. A lot to not only take the tarot meanings, but to take the imagery and to race off on an adventure with all the imagery to add into the readings. It just feels right for this time of year, this year, for me, to really enjoy this deck. So this is coming out of its bag to come and play. You can see the colours are amazing, and I've had some strange readings with this deck, some strange sort of synchronicities. Again, there feels like a sort of magical witchy vibe to this deck to me too. Of course, I'm a trained textile artist, so this is my bag too completely. It's got this sort of vintage feel to it as well, and I think the colour choices are not only unusual, but they're also really aesthetically gorgeous. So the Enchanted Tarot, it's definitely coming out to play on this top 10 list. Deck number 7, the same creators, Monty Farber and Amy Zerner. This is the other deck of theirs that I have. This is the Creativity Oracle. So you've got borderless images one side and the message on the other side. It is a deck with absolutely loads of cards. It's about creativity and living a creative life. I think when all the Christmas decorations go up, those sort of messages are perfect for this time of year. I love it when it starts to get dark outside and we can cozy on up. So yeah, this is just a lovely deck to work with. I am going to be pairing it with the Enchanted Tarot. Probably going to see if I can find some other pairings as well. Again, you can see the colours are gorgeous. There's a lot of detail in the imagery. There's a lot going on. Again, it's sewn art that's been photographed. It's like a plique sort of patchwork art. It's absolutely gorgeous. I've again had strange synchronicities with this where it's really lined up with imagery in other texts and blown my mind. It's a deck that I do love. It just feels so right at this time of year. So that's deck number 7, the Creativity Oracle. Deck number 8, a deck I'm really excited to start working with, is a deck that I got gifted by the lovely Sandra over at Spirit of Avalon now, is it? She was the Whispering Well. Sandra, I think it's the Spirit of Avalon, isn't it? And it's this one, the Rainbow Moon Tarot by Samantha West. This, oh my gosh, the colours in this and the body diversity as well just makes me smile. I mean, the box itself, it's got lime green and pink combined, and the cards as well, they are sort of turquoise, lime green, yellow, pink. That's kind of the colourway on these cards. It shouldn't work, but oh boy, it really does. Look, you can see the yellow, you can see the turquoise, you can see sort of limey green and pink. It's just wonderful. It makes me want to dye my hair pink again. In fact, I'm thinking about dyeing my hair again. I've actually bought some bright red dye and I don't know whether I should do it or not. Look at these images. They're just lovely. I've not worked with this deck yet. I've not read the guidebook, so I don't know yet. But all I know is that the images are calling to me. It's one of those decks where you haven't got round to working with it yet, but you keep getting it out just to look at the cards. It's got this gilding on, you can see, and I just love the imagery. I just think it feels so happy. It's a deck that I'm probably going to take into my doll room and use in there, because I did think I needed to put some decks in there. That might be a whole nother video. Somebody asked me, what decks would you use around your dolls? What decks remind you of your dolls? This is one of them. Perhaps that needs to be another video, but I love this. I love this deck so much. Look at it. Look at the images and look at the Tower card. It's just brilliant. So you can see there's some fantastic body diversity in there. There's some amazing looking characters. I think the characters of this deck look amazing. You've got, you know, there's diversity of all types going on in this deck, which I like to see, and I just think it looks amazing. So the Rainbow Moon Tarot by Samantha West, truly excited to start working with this one. Deck number 9 is a new deck to me, bought secondhand, that I got last year. Although I was in a no-buy year, I did my first ever deck swap in a Facebook group. I had a second copy of a certain deck that I'd bought to sort of adapt a little bit. Decided I didn't want to do that in the end, so I swapped it for a deck that 3 girls made me do. That's the Anna K Tarot. It's another deck that I said hell to the no to until I saw Julie and Heather and Sarah talking about this deck on 3 Girls 1 Deck. They made me do it. So it arrived and all I've done is flick through it, and oh boy, I get it. I really get it. The messages and the power of the messages that comes through these cards. It's the type of deck that you feel you could give to somebody who doesn't know a thing about tarot and they'd still get the meanings from the cards. So I need to do a video in its own right all about getting this deck. with what I think about the deck and which cards I like, which cards I don't like, how it changed my mind. But I'm excited to start working with it. So again, it's another new deck, but it's one that I'm vibing with right now. If I was packing only 10 in a bag, this would be one of them. So that's the Enchanted Tarot. Really excited to start working with that. I can see that some of these faces, which are the original thing that made me think, oh, know about this deck. It was like how strange the characters looked. It's still there, of course it is, but actually it's not as bad when you actually get the deck in your hands. It's not really that bad, to be honest. I think it's completely superseded by the fact that the art just is so powerful with the message. Again, it feels like almost like a story time deck. It feels like illustration should see in a fairy tale book, and I'm always going to love a deck for that. I'm always going to love a deck that feels like story time. So I'm really excited. Like I say, I've come completely round to this. The Heather, Sarah and Julie make quite a formidable team to ignore when they are sharing a combined passion. So I'm glad I listened to them. So that is my deck number 9, the Enchanted Tarot. So Rupert has joined me. Hello, Rupert. It's nearly time to go and feed him, so he's looking for food. So while Rupert settles down and gets dog hair all over my bed, it's like having a horse on the bed, honestly. The last deck, I've only got room for one more. I might add a couple more in. Meg set the precedent for that, so we'll see. So, deck number 10, the Witchling Academy Tarot, which just feels like my own version of Harry Potter in a deck. Again, it was one bought for Christmas last year, so right before no buy kicked in. Again, it's had hardly any use. I want to give it more time, more use. So Christmas time, at some point, every Christmas time, me and the kids sit down and we do a Harry Potter film marathon, and it just, because of that, I think it's feeling like it should be out at this time of year. I think it's another one that I'm going to leave in with the dolls and use on the table in with the dolls. You can see it's got this kind of anime sort of cartoony style, and I just can't wait to get to know it a little bit better than I do. So the Witchling Academy Tarot, again, you can see the colours are wonderful, bright, clear colours. Again, it's a story time deck. Now, Meg's decks were kind of story time-ish. I wonder if there's something going on at the minute. Definitely Hogwarts vibes to this all over. I love all the little creatures in here, all the familiars and the little budgie. Again, I love the coloured hair. Oh my gosh, perhaps this is a sign that I should dye my hair. Oh dear. Yeah, I just love it. I think it is really interesting visually, and it just feels fun and light and cozy and story timey. I think that's it. I think when the nights get dark and everybody's inside by 4:30 snuggled under blankets, the thing I want to do is reach for a book, a lovely story time book, or to have an extra hour reading to the kids, or to put a film on which is story. Perhaps that's what it is. It's this time of year leads you into story, doesn't it, and wanting more story time. Or perhaps that is just me. But the Witchling Academy Tarot is my number 10. Now, I did say that might not be it. I'm going to put in an honorary pairing, my Arthurian Tarot, which is back out again, mass market now. It went out of print because there was a problem with the publisher. I think it's out now. And the Mists of Avalon Oracle, these two get worked together. So what happened to my Hallow Quest? Well, I adored it. I did a about 6 weeks solid with this deck doing the pre-work. Then I did all of the sword suit, but then I got behind. Real life overtook me, and once I get behind with something, it then causes like a wall to stop me from trying to catch up. And then I just felt more and more guilty about being behind, and I just stopped. I stopped the Hallow Quest. So it's I've kind of got some guilt around this deck at the minute, even though I probably used it consistently as the only deck I was using for like 4 months of the year. So it's been my most used deck of the year, and I have completely fallen in love with it. So before the end of the year, I do want to do some readings with this to kind of settle the ground again with it, and to kind of shed the shame around dropping out the Hallow Quest, and on that level ground just to start using it again. I'll have a little look at the book and see where next year I want to re-pick up the Hallow Quest. I'm going to review my notes so far that I've made, and yeah, I just wanted to almost kind of like touch base with it again before the end of the year. So this too would be snuck in as a sneaky extra deck, and of course it pairs beautifully with the Mists of Avalon Oracle, which is by Rose and Sarah. Both of these are mass market decks. The Oracle is by Rockpool. You can see you've got this lovely Isle of Avalon, King Arthur imagery throughout both of the decks. They're just perfect together. The whole time I've used these two decks together, they have become like a really bonded pair. I can't imagine one without the other, and vice versa. So for me, these two really class as one deck. It's like the way the Zombie Tarot has bonded for me with the Nicoletta Ciccoli Tarot. Those two now feel like one deck to me. And I've experienced the same thing now with these two together. You can see they work beautifully together. So that is definitely my additional pairing that snuck into my only 10 decks. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching and listening. My only 10 mass market decks currently at the moment. I can see that the season and the weather and the dark nights have affected my choice, my desire to snuggle under blankets early and read story and surround myself in story has fed into that. I have some new decks in the mix there, which are going to be really exciting to get to know. At the end of December, I do get some free time when the kids go to their dad, so I have free time for new decks and discovering new decks, so it's nice to have some brand new decks in the mix. I have some decks that have been called out by the doll room as well. Also in amongst that top 10, there was again the reminder to me that decks I bought last year in a rush to grab decks before no buy are still untouched. So it's another reminder, don't race, don't overspend. All the time it's a reminder. But having said that, I have just immediately clicked off Meg's video and ordered the Cantor G Oracle. Oh my goodness, that deck. Oh, I'm really excited about that one. So I've got that one ordered today, literally within 3 seconds of watching Meg's video. So anyway, with that said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.